Is up, y'all? And welcome back to episode 31 of That's No Moon Pod. I just got back from seeing Spider Man Across the Spider Verse. This will be my full on spoiler heavy review slash just. I need to talk about this movie. Um, so if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. Come back to this vid, and yeah, let's just get right into it because there's so much that I mean, this movie might be a 10 out of 10 for me. Um, I was just thinking about not that long ago how I don't know how many movies I've ever seen in my life to where I could like definitively say that movie was a 10 out of 10. It's just what it is, right? Um, and I think this one is about as close as you can get for me to being a perfect movie. I can't say that this movie was in my top three or five even of the year. To be honest, probably number six. There's just so many good movies coming out this year, but after seeing Across the Spider Verse, it's gonna be pretty tough for any of the other films that are still to come out this year to top this movie. Um, Let me just talk about how the movie begins just with this kind of tone to it with the animation logos and the Lord and Miller and just they're pretty much just doing the opening credits, but the score and like the music going on in the background and just the overall like just visuals of how this movie starts, you just kind of feel the build up to it. Like while I was sitting watching it and the movie starting, because first of all, the movie theater I went to, I had a great movie theater experience, thankfully. Um, Comfy seats. Um, it was nice and AC in there. Um, but I just remember feeling like how this movie, right from the beginning, felt like it had weight to it, and it almost like it kind of had stakes. Like it had something to prove because obviously the first movie was amazing. A lot of people give that movie a 10 out of 10 too, and I wouldn't disagree with you either. But it just feels like it's been so long since the first movie came out because it has, and I just felt like Lord and Miller they really wanted to make you feel a certain type of way that just like any other Marvel movie, once that intro hits with the music and the logo, it kind of lets you know things are about to get real and just sit back and relax and enjoy the show. Um, and just the way it dives right into Gwen and her dad, her being in her universe and her dad being the cop and he's eventually going to be captain and you get the whole story with how he thinks that Gwen or Spider Woman killed Peter Parker and he's trying to catch Spider Woman when it's his daughter the whole time. And it's cool seeing their father daughter dynamic. Um, he's obviously doing it alone. Um, the similarities that they constantly bring up throughout the movie with each Spider Man, Spider Woman, all of them throughout the Spider Verse, how they all have these kind of consistent things in common, and that being their dad and being the cop and having that uncle and all these things that happen to all the different spiders across the Spider Verse. Um, you really feel how Gwen's like struggling to deal with, being a kid, obviously, and wanting to have all of her friends and caring about the people and having all this crazy superpower ability while trying to, make her dad happy at the same time. And I gotta say, the way that the scenes looked when Gwen and her dad were talking, um, I'm gonna keep bringing up animation throughout because obviously it's an animated movie, but this this one really did things differently to where while you're watching the movie, you're not just feeling like you're watching animated movie or nothing. Just the way the visuals look and the way they really try to make you feel like you're whenever you read a comic book. And for all the people like myself who um, read comic books on a regular basis and have been doing so for their whole lives pretty much, it was cool to see when they would do things that make you feel like how you would feel while reading an actual comic book in your mind. When you're reading the pages on your phone or through an actual paper comic book, you kind of obviously visualize it, but in your mind, you're kind of making up and playing the issue like it's a movie in your head, right? And I feel like this movie really kind of made you feel like how it would seem to be if you were to place your imagination in front of you while reading a comic book, if that makes any sense. Um, it's crazy. I'm gonna do my best to describe the way um, they were able to achieve all these crazy things visually. Gwen and her dad kind of seemed like they had like a watercolor palette when each one would talk, and it would constantly change colors when they were in her universe talking with one another. And it always got really emotional, obviously, because they have that tension between them that he thinks that she killed Peter Parker, and he wants to arrest her even though it's his freaking daughter, and he's just trying to do his job. And um, just the way the background and just the shading of the colors, like everything about Gwen and her dad, those scenes were probably some of my favorite moments throughout the whole movie. And I'm literally just talking about the very beginning of this film, like the first 10, 15 minutes. And we haven't even gotten into Miles yet, which after you see all the stuff go down between Gwen and her dad, it kind of re-intros the movie again with uh some credits or whatever, and the music starts to hit the soundtrack. You know we're we're in Brooklyn now, and just the way that they capture the vibe again and just continue to do with the cultures of Miles, and the way you really believe that this kid is living in this universe and struggling with trying to keep up with his superpowers and his schoolwork and his friends and family. Um, the dynamic between Miles and his family is one of the bigger taking um, one of the bigger, what am I trying to say here? It's Miles and his family throughout the whole film, and they really want you to care and believe that Miles is always trying to do the right thing, even though it may always end up disappointing his family. Um, at the end of the day, he's still Spider-Man, and Spider-Man always chooses to do the right thing, even though people say it can't be done or this and that. Um, they all have that thing in common, and Miles is no different, except he's got a whole bunch of crazy powers, and he's definitely flexing in this movie. Um, being such a young kid still, and so much time to develop and grow up and just harness his abilities even more. It's crazy to see the things that Miles is capable of doing at such a young age in this movie. Um, but I love the dynamic between him and his mom and his dad. His dad always cracks me up. His mom, you could tell, they really want you to, like I said, when Gwen and her dad are talking, and when Miles and his parents are talking, um, just the heartfelt lessons and takeaways that you get from that. Um, it's really the heart of the movie, and once we finally start to get into the craziness of all of it with uh, Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, Oscar Isaac freaking killing the game, dude. I'm telling you. I remember when the trailers came out for this movie, I had originally thought that they might have um, spoiled too much, like how a lot of movies tend to be doing nowadays. Um, if you know me, if you've been listening to some of my videos before, like a lot of people, I just hate when trailers give away too much in the first trailer that they ever show. And it's like, well, do I even really need to see the movie anymore? And I thought that that's what's going to happen for, well, at least that's what I thought was going to happen with this one with Spider Man 2099. And I thought they kind of gave away that he ends up being the main villain for Miles in this movie. And I was a little upset that they gave that away. But when you're watching the movie, you see what happens with Miguel O'Hara and what he's trying to do with all the Spideys across the Spider Verse and making sure that these universes all kind of go to plan or according to plan, right? Because he made a mistake once and changed everything because he got selfish and, out of love, risked everything for his family in his universe, but he ended up doing more harm than good. And I think the way Oscar Isaac was able to just use his voice, because he does have a distinct voice, and I think it worked really well with Miguel O'Hara. He's such a cool character. If you've ever read any Spider-Man 2099 comic books, you know how cool of a character Miguel O'Hara is, and just how unique and different he is compared to all the other Spider-Men. And uh, the way the animation on his costume looked, and just the way his, like those talons or those claw things that are on his forearms just looked, and he always looked like he was charged up, kind of, and you really feel the emotion whenever he's trying to explain himself and why he chooses to do the things that he does. Um, yeah, Oscar Isaac kills it. Everyone in the voice department, all the voice actors, um, they all kill it. Everyone. I'm not 100% sure on the full cast on who's who, um, but while you're watching the movie, you could kind of, while you're listening, you're kind of trying to think in your head, like, why does that? Who is that? That voice sounds familiar, but you're watching the movie, and I'm not really trying to play guessing games while trying to enjoy the film at the same time. But I'm sure when I go and look back and see who is who in the movie, I'll probably um, end up liking the movie even that much more. I need to see this movie again. That's for damn sure. Um, but let me just keep talking about some of the other things that I really like. Okay, if you been listening to any of my videos before, um, I always shout out my Instagram at Admire My Moonsault. And on my Instagram, I've been posting comic books on there for the past few years. Um, Almost every day, literally, new releases every week. Some of my old throwbacks that I've had in my Comixology app or whatever comic book app I'm using at the time. But throughout this past year, they were releasing the new Spider-Man or Spider-Verse comic book runs, and there was always at least a couple of new Spider-Man uh, comic runs coming out every week, and I got really into the Spider-Verse ones that were going on recently, and I'm glad I got into those and picked them up because once things get really crazy in this movie and all these different types of Spider-Man and Spider-Women from all these different Spider-Verses start appearing, it was really cool to see these characters that I had just read on these issues recently come to life on the big screen, and being able to recognize these characters for myself because I'm like, hey, I just read this, the Peter Park car, um, the T Rex Spider Man, obviously the Spider Man India, Spider Punk. I gotta get into. Spider Punk is such a cool character. Another comic book run that had just came out recently that I have on my Instagram. Um, you got to check out these comic books because these characters are all so unique but so cool at the same time. Um, Spider Punk, especially, definitely one of the coolest characters in the movie. I think he's probably going to be a lot of people's fan favorites in the film for sure. Um, but just the craziness of all the Spider-Man and Spider-Women across the Spider-Verse coming together on Nueva York, and just kind of how Miguel O'Hara is just running things, and um, it was really cool to see on the big screen. Like I keep saying, I got to talk about the main thing that I was trying to make with the point, talking about how um, I thought they gave away Miguel O'Hara being the main villain in this movie when in reality it's Spot. It's the Spot. And they give the funniest but most creative way of introducing this villain of the week type character and making him seem like he's just going to be that, right? He's just going to be the villain of the week. Um, we're right when we get introduced with him, is at around the same time we're getting introduced to Miles in the movie. So you're kind of anticipating Miles to come in, save the day, kick the spot's butt, arrest him, whatever, and then go meet up with his fam. But it kind of ends up turning into the whole reason everything kind of goes down at the end of this movie is because of the spot. And I probably laughed one of the hardest times in the movie was when Spot was saying how he's the one that Miles threw the bagel at in the first movie. And I remember that being one of the funniest moments of the first movie for me. And just always kind of thinking about that moment when he just throws a bagel and hits him and it says bagel. Um, and that ended up being who the Spot becomes and how, you really feel and can see why this guy has all this hatred towards Miles because of what he did to him and how with his unique power he's able to teleport through these different Spider Verses and try to figure out the best way possible to get his revenge on Miles because that's what he's really trying to do. Um, so it was just a cool take to kind of have a twist on a villain to where they're making you think that Miguel O'Hara is going to be the big main bad, but when the Spot at the end of the day is kind of the one who is the reason why all this is going down, but Miguel O'Hara still definitely is not happy and is not one to mess with at this moment in time. So, like I said, it was a cool swerve. They got me. I'm glad they did because, like I said, I would have been a little butthurt if the whole time I'm just kind of waiting to see what Miguel O'Hara does as the villain when in reality it's not just him. But like I said, the Spot was really cool. I really felt for the guy to be honest while watching the movie and just the comedic timing that the character has and the funny visuals you could use with his type of abilities is it's hilarious. Um, yeah, I can't say enough about the visuals. There was moments where I'm watching the scene and not only are they just trying to make you feel like you're reading a comic book or watching a comic book on the big screen, or even making you feel like you're in the comic book, if you will, just with how the animation looks. Um, some of the scenes legit make you feel like you're tripping on something. Not even, I had zero alcohol during this movie. Um, I was sober, completely sober the whole time during this movie. But if you've ever taken any type of, psychedelics or if you partake in any type of anything like that, whatever they did with the visuals and the colors and just obviously the tone and the emotion of the scene that's going on, combine all that with just this crazy unique animation style, it legit made me feel like I was tripping out on something. And I honestly, like I said, I can't explain how it made me feel. I'm trying the best I can, but that's honestly the best way I could explain it. It's as if like if you ever have taken shrooms, right? Um, and not like a stupid amount, but a good amount to where I'm trying to trip out right now. And I go back to the Gwen Stacy and her dad. Those scenes where the colors and just the way the paint kind of seemed like it was dripping down slowly on the walls behind them, and just the emotions of the scenes just somehow, some way, and multiple times throughout the movie, and not just those scenes, but multiple different scenes that I just can't think of, made me feel like I just took shrooms. And I'm going to try to do my best to explain this the best way I can in the future to people who haven't seen this movie. Um, but you just got to go see it for yourself, and you'll know what I mean. Trust me, you'll know what I mean. And if you decide to partake in some psychedelics prior to watching the movie, I honestly would think that would be amazing. But even without that, like I said, completely sober throughout the whole movie, the movie still made me feel like I was tripping out on something somehow, some way. Uh, I wonder if some people are gonna forget that it says that this is part one, and how the movie kind of, once we get to the ending, um, and you see all the things that go down for Miles, and how he's starting to feel betrayed by Gwen, and how she's rolling around in this crew of Spider-Man and all these spider across the Spider Verses with Miguel O'Hara. Miles is starting to feel like he really has to take things into his own hands, and um, just because they're saying that this can't be stopped from happening and happens in all these other Spider Verses because it's supposed to. Um, it just shows the major growth that Miles has had throughout, from the first movie up to where we finally end up seeing him at the end of this movie. Um, I'm trying to think of my favorite scene, like my favorite scene, but the more and more Spider-Man and all the new cool characters that just kept appearing throughout the movie, um, it made the pace feel really good, especially for being a long animation film. Um, that's probably my only complaint, is um, if you're one of those people that has to use the bathroom. Um, I was trying to time the best I could for this movie to where I was like, okay, I really got to go to the bathroom right now, but I'm really not trying to miss what happens next, right? And it was really tough for me to choose, especially towards the end, where I'm like, okay, I know the movie is about to end, but I gotta go like right now, so I'm not trying to miss what happens. Um, that'd probably be my only complaint of the movie, to be honest. But since we're talking about the end, let's get to the end, okay? Um, Miles and Miguel O'Hara, they have that whole crazy chase scene through Nuevo York, and everyone's chasing Miles and trying to get him to, you know, not go with or go through with this idea of trying to save um, his family, because he knows Spot is wanting to take everything that he took away from him and go after Miles' family. And obviously, he's not going to let that happen. So, um, just seeing that whole chase sequence kind of go on between them all, and you're just kind of waiting for something to go wrong, right? Because since it is a part one, and just kind of how they were making you feel about the families, and they really wanted you to make you care about each one's, and how each one is um, different but the same at the same time, and how much they love each other. They really want you to feel for the loss that may be had in the second movie. Um, so once Miles finally does his thing, and he goes through the portal, he gets sent off in that crazy scene with him, and he's using his um, like his invisible powers to sneak through and use that weird teleportation spider thing. And once he's back in his apartment or with his family, and you see his mom, right, and it's dark, and she's talking to him, and I remember seeing, I was like, were her eyes always green? And I didn't really think much of it while she was talking. And then the scene kind of keeps playing out, and then you're seeing how, okay, Miguel O'Hara and all of them, they're trying to find Miles, and um, Miles thinks that, okay, he's gonna try and make sure that once he sees Spot that he stops him. But like I said, with Miles' mom's green eyes, things are going through your head, and just the way the score is starting to make you feel how the darkness and just everything just feels uneasy, towards the end of the movie. And then the big drop whenever you see that, okay, the reason why Miles' mom's eyes are green is because this isn't his universe. And then here comes Uncle Aaron, dog, the freaking Prowler. And everyone in my theater for sure like gasped when that happened, because then that's when oh, he's not in his right universe. And then as the movie starts just playing on, you're seeing like what's happening. Um, then obviously we see once his uncle figures something's off, right? Gets Miles, and then the big reveal. You see the Prowler, and Miles is thinking that his uncle was a Prowler because he was the Prowler in his universe, when in reality, Miles is the Prowler in this universe. And he looks so cool with like the dreads, and just the way his Prowler outfit looks, and just the way he was like talking to him too. Um, just the twists and turns that this movie takes you on throughout. It never stops. It just keeps going, and it just keeps going. Um, and I loved every second of it. I can't honestly, um, besides just me having um, a bladder problem, this movie 10 out of 10 with that whole thing, with just the way they dropped that whole bomb on you with um, him being in the wrong universe, and um, just kind of how they make you feel for not only Miles but for Gwen as well in her universe, because it's not just one of each. It's both of them. The movies are them two together because Spider-Man and Gwen are always together, and that's just how it's always supposed to be. Um, and yeah, I can't wait to rewatch this movie again, um, because there's definitely a whole lot of things that I missed for sure. Crazy Easter eggs and cameos. Which, if we're talking cameos, um, Donald Glover, live action Donald Glover appearing was hilarious. Um, to kind of just see that part of the MCU universe cross over into this Sony Spider Verse universe was hilarious. Seeing all the tie-ins that they had with Andrew Garfield and his Uncle Ben, and Tobey Maguire and his Uncle Ben. Um, the scenes with when Spot goes into the Asian lady's convenience store from Venom. Um, I'm trying to think of the other stuff. Obviously the Peter Parker with his daughter, and this was hilarious. And you see Mary Jane, and how his daughter is just crazy with the spider baby powers, and just the funny father daughter dynamic that they had with him just trying to always being a good dad while being Spider-Man at the same time. Um, I loved all that. The humor just worked really well. It just blends in with um, all the visuals and just the storytelling, just everything that they did and accomplished in this movie. Um, it definitely deserves all the flowers, and I can see it. Um, I can't say a winning Best Picture, but I think for sure this movie will win Best Animated Film for sure at the Oscars, and will definitely get Best um, Visuals, I'm sure, and probably a whole lot of other different um, rewards throughout the year. I know it made over 100 something million in the opening weekend box office, which is crazy. Um, Spider Man is always a W for kids, and there's so many that this movie really shows. Um, Spider Man is one of those characters that is just a timeless character, not just in comic books, but in all literature and art. The way his character is just brought up and his mindset, it's one of the most relatable characters in all of literature and art ever. And it's crazy to see how far this comic book character has come and made such an impact on everyone across the world. And this movie really shows the power of comic books and good storytelling and just um, people with integrity and a good message that they want to leave on their world. And I think this movie really did the best possible job of accomplishing everything you would want to accomplish in a film. And I could probably go on, to be honest, about this movie, but I just want to see it again ASAP. Um, but let me know what y'all think. I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of other stuff that I wanted to talk about. Um, but I'm just gonna leave it at that. Like I said at the beginning, if you're now interested finally into comic books, welcome, and go check out my Instagram at Admire My Moonsault. I got all the newest Miles Morales, Gwen Stacy, Spider Verse, Amazing Spider Man, anything you could pretty much think of that's come out since a few years ago, comic book wise. I got it on my IG. Trust me. So go follow me on there at Admire My Moonsault. Follow me on Twitch at Admire My Moonsault as well. Like, comment, subscribe. I will be back later this week for episode 32. But until then, I hope y'all have a great rest of y'all's week. Y'all stay safe, and I'll catch y'all on the flip. Peace.